Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 127 for the National Land Realty podcast. We're here to talk about land. My name is Matt Christian. I'm your host for this episode. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for National Land Realty. And so we just got back from our national conference. Majority of our agents, we had the largest turnout we've ever had for a national conference in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which I want to give a shout out to Chattanooga. That is a very cool town. I had never been there before. Even checked out the Ruby Falls Caves. I recommend that to anybody. That was very cool as well. So we just got back from our national conference, and one of the conversations, the year is kicking off. One of the conversations that comes to light is what is going to happen in 2025. We have a lot of change. We have a new presidential administration. We have new economic policies. We have the year ahead. Everybody tries to put on the crystal ball and try to figure out what's going to happen in the year ahead, and we have done nothing less. In the last few podcasts, we've been covering this topic, and today is a continuation of that topic with CEO of National Land Realty, Ronnie Richardson. Now, Ronnie is one of the top minds in the land industry. We don't like to say that privately because we don't want to inflate his ego, but he really is one of the top minds in the land industry. He's also my boss, so I like to throw that stuff out there. He's also one of the top minds for strategy when it comes to buying and selling of land. So today, we're talking about our thoughts on what's going to happen in land real estate in 2025. And we're also going to cover topics like 1031s, 1033s, and Tax Code 180, and how those kind of play into land sales. We'll also be covering the great wealth transfer. Now, over the next 15 years, economists are anticipating the greatest transfer of land and wealth that we've ever seen. And National Land Realty and other real estate companies will be on the front line of this great wealth transfer because land will be transferring as well as wealth. Now, today, we're covering all of these exciting topics. Sit back and enjoy. I am sitting here with the one, the only CEO of National Land Realty. I gotta, it's not every day you get to introduce your boss, and I take every opportunity I can to give you crap. So I'm sitting here with Ronnie Richardson, CEO of National Land Realty. Ronnie, I want you to take a second to introduce anybody listening or watching on YouTube a chance to introduce yourself. Tell us how you got here. Tell us, what's the deal?
Well, thanks, Mac. It's always a pleasure to do these, and I know our time gets real limited. It gets hard. It's hard to get caught up on. It's hard to get me and you together, but this afternoon was a really good time. And how I got here, I was just mom and pop real estate broker in Mississippi when National Land found me, and but the technology they had and the people, it all just felt right. But that was in 2017. So I came on board, but I love the company so much. I went to work for them, not just selling real estate, but recruiting and helping the company. And, the next thing I know, they could show up one day and say, "What do you think about being the CEO?" And I said, "Well, I don't know nothing about being a CEO for a company this size." I said, "But, I'll do what I can to try to take a stab at it." What turned out to be a joke turned out to be a job. And that was 3 years ago. And I've probably learned more about real estate in the last 3 years than I have the first 30 years. And so far, so good. I'm still here, and we're still rolling. So that's how I got here.
All right. No, that's good. And what we're here, it is funny. You said it's hard to get us together. It's hard to get together on a conference like this. Texting and calling goes 24 hours a day. I like your late night text. But so what we're here to talk about today is, we just got through 2024, and we went into the year with every economist that we talked to and yourself talking about a flat line that we would see in the marketplace. And the big story of the year was interest rates, although in land markets, it's not as heavily impacted because it's usually driven by cash. But that doesn't mean it doesn't play a role. Now we're in 2025. We are in February. We're in February here. I'm going to ask you about your Valentine's Day plans here in a second. But I want to talk about 2025, and I want to kind of hand you the reins and just tell me sort of what you saw in 2024, and sort of what do you see happening in land markets in 2025?
In 2024, we of course we all anticipated it being a static year. Anytime it's election year, everybody kind of gets in a freeze frame and in a holding pattern and really doesn't know what to do. From an agricultural standpoint, the commodity prices were down, inputs were down just a little bit, but overall cost was up. It was just a hard year for anybody to come out on top in the land business. Inflation in the land business was not great in 2024. If you look nationwide, some of the prices dropped. For example, Iowa, across the board, prices in Iowa, farmland prices dropped by 10%. Across the nation, they were down by 5%. Not huge, but it's not historically what you see. What you do see in the land business is a trending up. Occasionally you'll see a little dip, but it'll trend up. And in 2024, it hit that dip. Here's what's going to happen in 2025. I showed
you said that really confidently right there. I'm a little worried.
No, I'm telling you, it's coming. And we see it, and I'm going to tell you why. Is because we are standing at the threshold of the promised land of real estate right now. The biggest wealth transfer we've ever seen in our lives is now. So when we're looking out at the promised land, if you're looking out at real estate, I mean, it's like I said at the summit, the salmon are big as a pickup truck and the grapes are big as basketballs. And we're standing at the threshold of it. There is going to be, I played a slideshow at the summit of a guy named Joel Salatin. Joel Salatin is a farmer, and he's an advisor, I think, to somebody at the USDA. I think it's the secretary of the USDA. Real smart guy. He says for the next 15 years, 50% of the farmland, the ranch land, the grassland, the timberland, 50% of it's going to change hands in the next 15 years. $25 trillion worth of real estate is going to change hands in the next 15 years. I'm 58 years old. I got 15 years left. I got a 15-year run is what I got. And I plan on my guys making as much of it as they can make over the next 15 years. We've got the tool. We've got, a visual I used. You were there at the summit. Was, I showed a quiver full of arrows and then another quiver with one or two arrows in it. And the truth is, what do you want to go hunting with? You want to go hunting with two arrows in your quiver? You want to go with a peacock full of of arrows and some in your hand? That's what National Land brings to the table, is those tools and those skills and that knowledge of how to handle a tax code 180 and how to handle a 1033 exchange and a 1031 exchange and a windmill lease and a solar lease and a. We've got that, and we're standing, there's going to be so much real estate change hands in the next 15 years that if you can't make a living doing it in the next 15 years, it's 100% your fault. That's the true story, and it's starting now.
I want to have a better reaction to everything you just said. All I can do is.
I mean, I'm 58 years old, and I'm like a 6-year-old kid going into Chuck E. Cheese. I am excited as I've ever been about the real estate business, because I don't know what's going to happen every day when I get up, when I pick this phone up. But I'm telling you right now, it's the same story every day. It's already started. I get it every day, even from people that don't buy real estate from National Land Realty. Hey, Ronnie, this is Mac. Me and my wife have been farming this land for 50 years. We got it from my granddaddy. We don't have any children. We want to sell it. We don't know what to do with the money. Can you help me? Same story. And the answer is yes, I can.
So what is it, the marketplace, and yeah, everyone seems to talk about the great wealth transfer. That seems to be the big story. And people think about it in terms of mom and dad's life savings, mom and dad's 401k, mom's 401k from back in the day that, that gets, inherited. And that's what everyone's been focused on. And you're right. The conversation hasn't been about outside of our circles, right? Because we deal with land, but mom and dad own land. And that great wealth transfer that everyone's been talking about also translate to a land transfer. What does the marketplace? So when we're looking at this scenario where there's going to be a lot of transfer of wealth, what does that mean for the values for current landowners? Is it, is this going to drive price up? Is this going to be an inventory glut? Is it like getting into the land market? What's the from the purchasers and sellers in this marketplace? What does that all mean?
And I didn't mean to get excited a while ago, but I'm excited about this portion of real estate. But this is economics 101. What happens when you have a plethora of supply and the market price goes down? It's basic math and economics. So do I anticipate that prices are going to go down? No, I do not. Do I anticipate that that volume's going to go up? Yes, I do. And, but I also don't anticipate big inflationary prices in farmland or rec land or timberland or grassland over the next, golly, I hate to say 15 years, because somebody's going to call in here in a few years and go, that CEO was wrong. My farm went up by 10%. And I'm like, okay, you're going to have spot places that prices are going to fluctuate. But in the overall market, there's going to be a plethora of supply. There's going to be a really good demand. I think prices are going to stay pretty flat for a while overall. Regionally, there's going to be some places that have massive increases, but overall, I think prices are going to remain static. But just the sheer volume is going to be enormous. And again, I see it every day now. I don't take listings. I don't go out and list land anymore. I mean, if somebody calls me, I give it to somebody that works with us. But it's every single day that my kid moved to, me and my son raised cows out here forever, and he moved to Austin, and he says he don't care about cows anymore. And I really don't know what to do with the money. I want to sell the farm because he don't want to do it. I can lease it for $8 an acre a year, or I can sell it for $4,000 an acre, but I don't want to pay capital gains tax. And that's really where National Land Realty comes in and saves the day. Because you can transfer that wealth with zero capital gains tax and leave it to your child for generational wealth.
And let's talk about those tools. So you talked about 3 of them specifically, and I think it's good. Whenever we talk about we talk about a 1031 exchange, or we talk about you brought up 1033s, and we don't even talk about those all that often internally, or DSTs or things like that. Let's give me a brief outline on sort of like how those are used.
Well, it's, a lot of people a lot of realtors don't understand a lot of this stuff. They do one class on a 1031 exchange and they believe they're an expert. We have 3 lawyers on staff full time, and myself handles a lot of 1031 exchanges, and we get stumped on a weekly basis. We don't have the answer. We don't have the answer every week, week in and week out, but so they're complicated. So every situation we look at is kind of different. And you take a guy that inherited some of his place, he bought some of his place, he did some capital improvements, he took some depreciation. What's his basis? Most people don't know how to figure that out. Most agents I've bumped into don't know how to figure it out. But we try to help him figure out what his basis is with his accountant, figure out what his capital gains exposures are going to be, and then discuss it with him. I mean, if we're going to sell his place for $20 million and he's got $1 million basis, he's got a $19 million capital gain, he's going to owe the government a substantial amount of money. And if he's married and that's all of his assets, he's going to fall under the estate tax exemption, he's going to be in good shape. If he wants to sell that place, we give 19, he gets $19 million, applies the 1031 tax codes to the money. He can defer that. He can exchange that into whatever he wants to, Mac. Anything that's held for investment. So one of the best tools that we found is a Delaware statutory trust. It's real estate for real estate. We're selling your cattle farm that you owned by yourself, and you're going to exchange it for a share in another piece of real estate that's income producing. It's that simple.
I've described the DSTs before as a real estate mutual fund. Is kind of how it functions. Like it's a pool of money from several people that purchase several pieces of real estate as a portfolio, and it's managed like
that appreciates.
Yep.
And you still get the dividend off of it. So you're kind of double dipping on the appreciation and the dividend.
I was going to say somewhere in there is a financial person who wants to hit me over the head for using that description, but I kind of I haven't heard a good description to the contrary. So I'm going to stand on my hill, but not die on it.
Well, I'm a financial guy, and I don't disagree with your assessment of that at all. Now, a guy can also take that money if he wants to, and these are real life examples that come to my head. A guy could go. We just did one in Colorado. The guy sold his farm, but he liked cows so much. Instead of having the big farm, he bought a little bitty farm. He bought a 160-acre farm and a house. He's got him a few cows and a few horses out there. He 1031 exchanged over into it. He took the rest of the money, put it in DSTs, and he's living, he's done. He protected his entire nest egg, and he's going to do what he wants to for the rest of his life, is be a rancher on 160 acres instead of 600 acres. And it was so satisfying to watch him to know. And I actually went out there and met his two daughters that are in high school, and basically had a conversation with them that said, this is going to be y'all's money. Eventually this is going to be your money. Your parents are going to be making X a month, which is more money than they've ever made in their whole life. But they were able to preserve that generational wealth that's coming, Yeah. And their accountant told them the best thing to do is pay the tax and put the rest of it in a mutual fund. Well, I'm not down on accountants, but that's horrible advice. If your mission is to hold on to the nest egg that you've built or through appreciation of your farm, if that's your mission, that's horrible advice. If you love paying taxes, that's great advice. But
I don't know many that enjoy that. And I mean, as a function, you're not liquidating at that point. You are just transferring the type of real estate investment or income related investment that you are putting your money into. And that's the reason for the tax deferral. And this is where I try not to go too much into it. Feel like a crew is going to throw something at me or something like that, going into 1031 legalities. But, it's a legal way to do things. Like, this is how it's done. This is how land transfers are done, because our government wants to encourage people to stay in agriculture. If you have to get hit with capital gains taxes, you got to exit agriculture. Then everybody doesn't have food.
Well, you're exactly right. And the 1031 code does encourage people to move around. It encourages commerce in the real estate business is what it does. And, maybe a guy wants to sell his farm and take that 1031 and buy some other investment properties. Maybe he wants to buy a couple condos on the beach and a couple of Dollar Generals and rent them out and get the income from it. But that's single tenant owner properties that he's going to have to manage. And the difference in that and the DST is you do have professional management in the DST, whether it's in an Amazon distribution center in Texas, or whether it's apartment building in Chicago, or student housing in Alabama. I don't know. It depends on what's available that day.
And so the description that you just played out, where we're looking at a generational transfer of wealth and land that's going to take place over, like you said, over the next 15 years, is what we're anticipating. That scenario with 1031s is going to play out, and DSTs is going to play out over and over and over throughout the country. It's not, and that's where it's not just land sales. Like, it's definitely these specialty situations where people want to preserve their family wealth and utilize the tools at their disposal, but not everybody knows about these tools. Not everybody knows how to work with them. The one that you brought up is you brought up Tax Code 180, which we've mentioned Summit a couple times. For those of you listening who don't know what Summit is, this is our national convention where all of National Land Realty gets together. We just got back from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and part of our presentation mix was a company that works with Tax Code 180, which is a soil taxation, or actually I would say a nutrients taxation, but that's one that only takes place at the purchase. And can you tell us a little bit about that code and sort of what that means for this whole, because it matters, right? When we're talking about the sellers of property are using things like 1031s to move their investment and move their money. And then you have people coming in and you have things like Tax Code 180 that people can take advantage of that makes that whole sale process easier.
Yes, it does. And on purchase, it's just excess fertility in the soil. And does it make sense? It makes sense if you don't like paying taxes. It's very simple, same thing. So you buy a piece of property before you apply any fertilizer to it. You have soil sample done. If there's excess fertility there, there's a rate that AMS Labs gives you of what it's worth. So if there's excess fertility in this 100 acres of tillable out here to the tune of $1,000 an acre, then that becomes a tax deductible donation for you. After AMS does their soil test, you take the tax deductible donation. It affects your basis in the farm. Your basis goes up when you take that deduction in what you purchased. But if you're going to 1031 out of it in 20 or 30 years or 10 years or whatever, it doesn't matter. You keep kicking the can down the road. Sometimes I've had probably 3 pieces of property tested, soil tested. I have 2 under test right now. One of them, they couldn't determine if it was excess fertility. One of them definitely did not have excess fertility. And the other one had $500 an acre worth of excess fertility in the soil. And it was a small farm. It was something for battery storage in Michigan. And it had $500 an acre. So it's $25,000 deduction for the excess fertility. So we advise all of our buyers to do that, to at least take a cursory look at that if they want to. Some of them say, no, I don't. Some of them say, get out of my way. I just want to turn my cows out. Okay, fine. Whatever the client wants, but we're going to expose them to everything we know when they buy a piece of property from us. Or we're going to expose the seller to everything we know. When I go to a listing, the first thing we're going to talk about is, why are you selling and what are you going to do with this money? And it's happened to me before, Mac. I go, hey, Mr. Christian, what do you want? Why are you selling this place? And what are you going to do with this money? Because I want to, and it's my money. Don't concern yourself with my money. It's not a problem, Mr. Christian. Sign this listing right here. We'll get you signed up and get it sold, and congratulations. But for the most, we're at least going to expose them to what we've been taught.
So can I go and thank you, by the way, because those are really great descriptions of those things. And again, in these situations where we're looking at generational wealth, and the tax code 180 applies to anybody buying a piece of land, period. But the generational wealth side, the 1031 area, DST area, becomes increasingly important for people who are planning for preservation of wealth. As that relates to 2024, we talked about how it was a rough year. I mean, and this is in comparison, right? We're talking rough in comparison to what we saw 2020, 2019 through 2022. The hottest market in the history of that we can possibly imagine. And then we move into 2023, 2024, where it's stable to dipping. Now that the election has happened, are we seeing an uptick in land transfer moving into Q3, Q4? Are we going to see an uptick, or is it going to maintain level, do you think? And this is crystal ball time. So 4 months from now, when we're sitting down for a bourbon and when we realize that we were wrong, we can come on here and apologize for that. I like the crystal ball stuff.
I'll tell you a quick story. We had our merger and acquisition team bumped this other real estate company to see about purchasing it about 6 months ago, and we couldn't make a deal. And so we bumped them again the end of January 2025, 14 days ago, whatever it was. Their reply was, hey, that number we gave you 6 months ago, you can throw that in the garbage because we already have under contract through the first month of the year, a third of our total volume of 2024. So we're not selling for the price that you were not going to buy at. Our price now is that plus X because we have so much more volume. So is there going to be an uptick? Huge uptick in volume. I ain't going to say there's going to be an inflationary craziness like we've seen, but there is going to be a big uptick in volume.
And that makes sense because, from everything that happened in the last few years, and I'm going to say the last 5 years, land values shot through the ceiling, just like all real estate, right? Real estate all went crazy. But there's a ceiling for all of this stuff.
Sure.
There's also buyers waiting. And so throughout 2024, I think buyers were hanging out, trying to see if there's going to be a decline in price. Everyone wants to be a vulture at the right time. And so if there's a decline in price, people were probably waiting for that, waiting to see if the market was actually stable, which it turned out to be. And now that the chaos of a presidential election is over, I think that, there's buyers waiting in the wings. There's plenty of inventory ready to hit the market, but it's probably not going to drive any particular direction because it's sort of at an equilibrium, I think.
If I was a buyer for farmland or for rec land or for timberland or grassland or whatever, I'd be buying right now. I do not see the prices, even though there's going to be an uptick in volume. There's not going to be an uptick in price, and it's not going to be a huge downturn in price. Remember that little stair step of steady? We're at the stair step of the steady growth of the steady appreciation of land. We're at that stair step flat part right now. Now, when is it going to make that turn and continue back up? I don't know. That's the crystal ball part that I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns with tariffs right now. And so maybe that affects farmland prices. Maybe it affects commodity prices a little bit. That's just stuff we have to wait and see. But overall, the overall market, if I was a buyer now, would be the time to buy.
I was going to say that the commodities market is one where I think there's a little bit of risk. You talked to that a little bit, because we have seen sort of what the tariff scenario looks like. We don't know what this tariff scenario is going to look like. It's 4 years later.
No.
We saw China stop buying soy during that first administration, and so I think it would be fair to say that we can anticipate something similar. At the same time, if we're cutting spending, like there could be the possibility that there's not as much infrastructure there to buy in the case of there's reimbursement, right, for farming and agriculture when things happen like soy doesn't get purchased from China, to keep the farmers afloat. Do you think those programs are going to continue, and do you think there's risk in that market?
They always have, and I believe that they always will. It's we got to have the farmers regardless. So we got to have cattle. We got to have corn, cotton, wheat. We got to have all this stuff. So again, it's always happened. It may have been at the last hour of the last day, but it's always happened, and I believe it always will. Because if it does not, it would be devastating to some farmers. Not all farmers, but to a good many of them, it would be devastating.
Yeah, and it's one of those like, don't bite the hand that feeds you, literally, because literally the hand that feeds you. We got to keep them afloat, and that'll be interesting to watch play out. That's the only thing that I have heard that could be in the risk category.
That's just going to have to be one of those anomaly things that we just have to work through. There's no way to say what the effects of that are going to be. we can't 100% guess the effects of that or predict the effects of that.
So you talked about agricultural land. What about the recreational space? What could be, and to put it in perspective, agriculture held strong. Recreation wasn't as strong in 2024. What do you think the outlook is for 2025?
It's the recreational market. When I said a while ago that there's going to be some specialized areas in the country where there's appreciation of land, those are going to be your rec places, especially waterfowl places. Holy smokes. I mean, it is, the prices that they're charging for some of these recreational places is to me is it's nice for us, but I guess if you want to hunt ducks, it's a pay to play situation. Or if you want to hunt geese, and it's supply and demand. People want that rec value, and they're willing to pay it. So I believe those prices are going to hold steady or continue to increase as discretionary income continues to increase.
Those situations of purchasing for a particular pursuit in recreation. I just had a conversation. I don't know if you've talked to Sue Hudson out of Maryland. She's one of our agents. She's going to be doing a podcast with us in about a week, I think. She was telling me about Sika deer, which is an invasive species in Maryland. And she said that land that was swamp, that was useless, you could give it away at like $500 an acre a few years ago, is now going for $4,000 an acre because of the Sika deer hunting opportunities. Right. It's such a random thing but it's the recreational quality of those properties. And I think that those things play out throughout the year.
We had exactly the same situation in Mississippi. I mean, when I got in the business, we were selling recreational land, deer hunting land for $250 an acre. You'd answer the phone. Somebody'd call from a newspaper ad and say, I'm going to call about this piece of property in whatever county, and you'd tell them $250 an acre. And I mean, it'd be everything but cuss you out. Like, is there a gold mine under that? And I mean, it's your own, the same story, but now it's nothing for it to be $4,000 an acre. Same piece of cut over land in Podunk, Mississippi, that's got deer and turkey on it. It's going to demand a high price.
And you're right. As liquidity picks up, those things, that's when those things really start to move. And it looks like 2025 looks like to be a year of stability like that. Looks like everything's going to be sort of flatlined throughout the year and stable. And volume picking up is what we're sort of, where we're sort of headed.
One of the things that we really hadn't talked about yet is the timberland business. And that's another thing that tariffs, I don't know what's going to happen with tariffs in the timberland business. It's not, it's not really a lucrative business right now to plant pine trees on your place and hope for the future. But, that's going to be an interesting marker to watch also.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, as soon as you mentioned timber, I thought of timber stands in Georgia and areas that got hit by hurricanes, where we have a supply of timber that we don't even know is gone yet, that just got wiped out. And whoever is there to pick up the slack is set to make a good chunk of money. I hate saying that because that's at the detriment of Georgia and what they just went through, but that's economics. That we're a limited supply, and a lot of those trees weren't set to be harvested for, say, a decade and just got wiped out. There's timber opportunities are definitely there and ready.
I think so. And if we put tariffs on the timber that's coming in from Canada, that's certainly going to affect the price of timberland in Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana, Tennessee, wherever, all up through the southeastern United States.
Yeah, and we'll have to see. Definitely waiting to see what that brings. I haven't seen a timber. Had they tariff timber yet?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't have the answer to it. It's something. I was like, I need to pull a number. But that's something to keep an eye on. Cool. Before we sign off, I want to give you a chance to go through anything else you're thinking for 2025.
This is what I would say. if let's talk about renewable energy for just a second,
Okay.
especially in the Midwest. Those things survive on renewable energy tax credits. With the administration we have now, I wouldn't be surprised if those get put on the chopping block. I ain't saying that they are. I ain't trying to scare anybody. I'm just saying, but if they do, that's going to be a very difficult time for people that have wind turbines on their property. If you're depending on that wind turbine income, it might be a time to look at liquidating those or liquidating that income stream. And you can 1031 that money. So what made me think of it is talking about 1031s. You can 1031 that money into some other investment and let somebody else take the risk of that. GE did close one of their windmill manufacturing plants in Brazil this past week. Siemens has closed one of theirs. Again, not talking negative, Nelly. I believe in renewable energy. I believe in the solar farms. They work. Wind works in certain areas. I was meeting with a guy yesterday. We were talking about different types of renewable energy, and the wind and solar really doesn't work well in an industrial complex. Say, for example, Baton Rouge. Baton Rouge can't operate on wind and solar. They can't do it. The grid, it just doesn't work. Hollandale, Mississippi can. They can function very efficiently on that kind of renewable energy, but there's still a market for those for any windmill farm or solar farm out there. So if you have one of those, it may be a good time to think about taking a look-see at that and trying to maximize your return out of that, because those are depreciating assets. We are gonna get better and better and better at renewable energy. And it's not going to require thousands of acres of solar farms and hundreds of windmills to produce the same amount of energy. So if you have those, you want to entertain the idea of figuring out what they're worth and what you could do with the money. We're certainly here to help. And again, our guys are educated and well versed on how that process works and the values of those. So
that's a terrific point. And there is a lot of preemptive movement on wondering what's going to happen with renewables over the next 4 years. New administration, new policies regarding those. And there's people waiting and there's people moving. And that just depends on who owns and who is where and who wants to do what.
It's what sparked that conversation yesterday was microreactors, nuclear microreactors. And I was doing some research on that, and there is a lot of movement in that field of actually what they were talking about was a microreactor that would fit in a Connex box and could be deployed somewhere within 24 hours and generate 5 megawatts worth of power. My response was, well, how are they going to cool this? I mean, because I'm thinking about Port Gibson, Mississippi, with this dadgum huge cooling tower there by the Mississippi River. And the technology has it to where they can cool it with an air conditioning unit now and cycle the water through just like a radiator in the car. So it's, that process is getting closer every day. So I'm real excited for our future about that, about our energy future over that. So, and again, if you have some renewable on your property and you love it and you're generating income, we love you generating income, but it is depreciating and you can 1031 out of that into something that is appreciating.
Those are very good points. Anything else? 2025.
Again, I think it's just volume, Mac. I think the volume's going to increase so much. Everybody's going to be real busy. Everybody's going to think it's the land of plenty again. And from all indications for the next 10 years, it's going to be. There's going to be a lot of, there was a lot of money printed during COVID, so there's still a lot of money out there. Our GDP's good, money's good, stock market's good. So, and discretionary income's good. Still amazes me the amount of cash people have. You know, it's my buddy owns a car dealership, and he said probably over 50% of the cars he sells now, people just pay cash for. And like, they're not cheap. Like, you know, trucks are $100,000. And the salespeople there will say, well, you want to finance? No, I'll just pay cash for it. But there still is a lot of cash laying around out there. And land's always been a good hedge against inflation. So I think we are prepped already for a banner year at National Land Realty, and it's 45 days into the year. We are prepped. We had the biggest January we've ever had. January, February, and March typically are months that you are trying to hold on to your company. I mean, you just make enough money to pay the overhead. At the best January we've ever had. We're going to have the best February maybe in the history of this company. We're going to have the best February of any in the history of this company of any month ever. And February is one of our worst months. So
it is always one of the worst months.
It's always one of the worst months. And this may be a record month for this company this month. We're on schedule for that right now, which is amazing. That just gives you an indication of what I'm telling you is 100% the truth today. I mean, it's coming. People are moving out of land. And, you know, as we've been sitting on here, I've had 2 text messages from 2 of our agents, and it's the same story. I don't even have to read them. I know what they say. I got a guy who's got a farm, and he's ready to sell it, and he don't want to pay capital gains tax. He wants to defer that and save money for his, you know, generational first kids. Okay. I mean, I know what those 2 stories are about, and I'll be working on those tonight, and we'll get them an answer. And so, you know, I'm excited. I'm telling you, I'm like a kid right now in a candy store. I'm so excited about what's happening, and I'm, you know, even the real estate agents out there that don't work for National Land Realty, I have 2 meetings right now with 2 of our competitors to help them understand this process of 1031, 1033, tax code 180, DSTs, you know, because they're going to get the same questions that we get from their clientele, people that call ABC Realty and say, you know, I'd sell, but I don't know what to do with the money. Well, if you hadn't been exposed to that, you're going to say, well, if you figure that out, you give me a call back. That's not going to work, you know, because that guy's going to pick up the phone and they're eventually going to bump into a national land agent or somebody that's been educated about it. We wasn't born knowing this stuff. You know, somebody taught us. And fortunately, the leadership at National Land Realty, not just me, but the rest of us have brought in people that can educate you, and partnerships. We have partnerships with people that can educate our guys. You know, I know we were both at the summit this past week. And I said, we didn't spend our money on a professional athlete to come make us feel like Superman till Friday. We didn't spend our money on a sales coach to come make us feel good about ourselves till Friday. We spent our money on people that would educate you to make you feel good about yourself forever. You know, to make you confident in what you're saying is 100% true. You're taking care of the client, and we're trying to teach our agents that they can carry it with them from now on. Because when the competition comes in, when I go into a listing appointment and ABC Realty's coming in behind me, I mean, they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle. We looked at doing a co-listing with a guy the other day. He's been a broker for about 10 years, and we're talking to his client that he already has. Can't get the property sold. He asked us to come visit with his client, so we did. And we're going through all these things that we talk about, that we just got through talking about on this podcast. And he said, how do y'all know that stuff? And of course, we said something like, we're born knowing it. Everybody knows this, which was just a joke. But I mean, it said somebody taught us. And fortunately for our agents, they have access to every one of the professionals that help us, that help teach us. They can call them anytime. And we never stop training our guys so they will be able to expose their clients to a 1033 exchange, a 1031 exchange, a tax code 180, a DST, or whatever's involved in the real estate business. We want our guys to at least have been exposed to it.
Awesome. Well, Ronnie, I'm going to let you get back to your evening. I've kept you. We've been on the phone back and forth all day. I'm going to let you get out of here.
It doesn't matter. My day won't end till I go to sleep at 10 o'clock. So, but all's good. I love this stuff. So I appreciate your time. Anything you need, you can give me a call, and anything any of our listeners need, they can certainly find me. I'm not hard. Go to nationalland.com. Look up Ronnie. It's got my cell phone number on it. Call me anytime.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks, Mac.
This concludes episode number 127 for the National Land Realty podcast, covering 2025 land trends with National Land Realty CEO Ronnie Richardson. You can learn more about the buying and selling of land at nationalland.com. And remember to follow this podcast. Make sure to do that. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on anywhere that you can find podcasts. We'll talk to you next week.